Welcome to my 14th Wild Watches video. Today I will be talking about the movies I watched in the month of February 2017. I will talk about them individually starting now. The first movie I watched was The Exorcist, the 1973 classic. I watched this after reading the book. The book is excellent. It's scary as hell. The movie is excellent, scary as hell. It is surprising this movie came out in 1973, 2 years before Jaws, which apparently was the first summer blockbuster. Strange. I think before that, it was The Exorcist, and before that, it was Psycho. The second movie I watched was The Rift. This stars R. Lee Ermey and Ray Wise. It's a ripoff of The Abyss, and it came out during the great flood of the 1989 underwater sea creature horror films. But there's a great distinction between this one and those. This one came out in 1990. It's pretty fun. The effects, while corny, are a lot of fun to look at. There's tons of gore. I really enjoyed this movie. The third movie I watched was Resident Evil Afterlife. I have yet to watch Resident Evil Retribution. I plan to soon, as well as the final chapter. This was a pretty good movie for what it was. It's not as good as Part 3. It is about as good as Part 1. I still think that this series can be salvaged and a reboot could be in the works. The fourth movie I watched was The Prowler. This is from director Joseph Zito, who eventually went on to direct Friday the 13th, The Final Chapter. This has great practical effects from Tom Savini, who eventually went on to help out with the effects on Friday the 13th, The Final Chapter. The major difference between The Final Chapter and The Prowler is that The Prowler is slow, has okay characters, while Friday the 13th has a brisk pace and awesomely fun characters. Still, this is definitely worth your time. It is a true slasher classic from the 80s. The fifth movie I watched was Attack on Titan Part 1. I had already seen Part 2, so I didn't watch it again, but I had a great time watching the first part again. I love this movie. I started watching it with my mom, ended watching it with my dad. She fell asleep, he tuned in, and they're not really into the whole foreign movie craze. But this is a really good movie, and it is highly entertaining, so that it was able to keep his attention. The sixth movie I watched was 31, which was surprisingly awesome. There's tons of batshit insane action scenes with horror and gore. The clowns are cool, vile, profane. The characters are dirty, vile, and profane. It's a staple of the Rob Zombie genre, and it's a damn fun one this time around. The seventh movie I watched was The Omen, the 1976 classic. And you know what? I think this film is somewhat even ahead of its time. It's got decent effects, a chilling score, and great acting and characters. The eighth movie I watched was A Good Day to Die Hard, the fifth installment in the Die Hard franchise, and the worst in the Die Hard franchise. Don't get me wrong, this is still a fun movie. It just could have been so much more. The ninth movie I watched was John Wick Chapter 2. I saw this in theaters and I loved it. It is even better than Part 1, which I love Part 1. So my god. The 10th movie I watched was King Kong, the 2016 fan film from Big Jack Films. It is a long movie, it's like 2.5 hours, but it was entertaining. The editing and sound design were god-awful. The effects, besides the cool stop animation, were pretty bad, but there was a lot of effort put into them. I still found myself really enjoying this fan film. I hope he is able to edit this movie a little bit better and work on it and polish it up some more, because it has a lot of potential. The 11th movie I watched was King Kong, the 1976 film. My opinion used to be this was the lesser of the movies. movies. But after seeing Big Jack's film review on this, and how he gushed over it, I soon came to understand why he did so. While watching this movie, I found myself immersed in this story. It didn't need the dinosaurs. It was a magnum opus. The 12th movie I watched was The Monster from 2016. God, at first I hated the mom character in this movie. By the end, she was redeemed. The little girl in this movie took me by total surprise, though. She's a badass. I really love this movie. But not as much as the next movie I'm going to be talking about, which has a similar looking creature. The 13th movie I watched was Animal. This 2015 slasher creature feature was totally awesome. I remember watching it online first, then picking up the Blu-ray, then watching it over and over again. It is a fun tribute to the 90s creature feature cinema. The 14th movie I watched was a long time coming. Monster! The 1999 film from Sci-Fi. God, this film took me, 17 years to see again? It is a lot of fun. I like the twists and turns this movie takes, and it is surprisingly better than a lot of the creature features / sci-fi films from the 50s. The 15th movie I watched was Train to Busan. Best non-horror comedy, straight-up action horror film about zombies I think I've ever seen. If not, it's really damn close. I cannot even explain how this movie made me feel. There is so much heart, so much emotion. I loved it. The characters are great. The story is great. The action and blood shed is great. I love this movie. The 16th movie I watched was The Legend of Tarzan. The 2016 big budget but low in the special effects department film. It's not a terrible looking film, nor is it a terrible film. It just needed some work done on it. The 17th movie I watched was Shark Night. It's about as good as I remember it. It's not the best shark movie, but it is definitely not the worst. And unfortunately, the 18th movie I watched was Twilight Breaking Dawn Part 2. Why the frig did I watch this movie? Because my friend who watched with me John Wick Chapter 2, Animal, and Shark Night was requesting that she watch a movie that she wanted to watch. I said, sure. She picked Twilight. While the series sucks, I think this is the best one out of the franchise. It's not saying much. And that is it. Those are the 18 movies I watched this past month. I am Brian Gatto, host of Horror Show Entertainment. Make sure to like my Facebook page in the description below and to leave comments and subscribe.